It's a Monday, and you know what that means during football season. Trevor Matich of ESPN back on the program. Trevor, welcome back for another Matich Monday.
Great to be with you guys.
How does BYU overcome its strength of schedule?
BYU cannot overcome its strength of schedule by itself. The easy answer is they need to dominate the games, and that'll be harder to do than they'll get credit for. If they do dominate, people will say, well, they should. But people that know football know that the remaining schedule is tough, and this whole schedule has been tough. So far, it's been tough. These are hard teams to dominate. But if BYU does their part and dominates, that's one side of it, but that won't be enough. They'll need to also get help from people above them losing. And the good news for BYU is that right now they sit at 18 in the AP poll. And the polls have nothing to do with what the selection committee will decide at the end of the season, but they're all we have right now. And keep in mind that there are two goals to get to. The first is the 14 playoff. And it'll be very hard to get there. It's theoretically possible, but they could. A more likely possibility would be to play in one of the New Year's Six Bowls. And in order to do that, they don't have an automatic bid because they're not considered one of the group of five. The highest ranked of the group of five, the non-Power 5 conferences, will get an automatic bid. BYU would be the highest ranked there right now, but they're not considered in that group. So what they'll need to do is get into, for 6 bowls, at least ranked 12th in the nation, but preferably up into the top 10. And if that's the case, the selection committee has the authority to select them as an at-large selection to play in one of those big New Year's Six Bowls, the equivalent of the BCS Bowls in the past. And so they're 18th now, and a lot of teams ahead of them play each other. A lot of the SEC West teams are up ahead of them, for example.
Starting
Big
this
Ten
week?
Teams. This week there's a huge elimination. The playoffs already begin in the SEC West this week, and it'll be the first week of October.
Great point.
And you've got Alabama playing Ole Miss. LSU's playing Auburn. Mississippi State is playing Texas A&M. So those teams will, in some ways, take care of themselves. But you ask, can BYU overcome their schedule? Not by themselves. But if they don't do their part, then nothing else is even in the conversation.
Yeah, make sure you have a DVR this weekend for General Conference and college football. It's going to be fantastic. Trevor, if BYU is undefeated after the regular season, are they in the top 10?
I believe they would be in the top 10 if they're undefeated at the end of the regular season. They've got a very good chance. And again, the reason is the teams ahead of them will end up with a loss or two. Mm-hmm. And that'll give them a chance to be able to move up in there. And so are they one of the 10 best teams is a different question. But would they be able to be ranked in the top 10 just because of the cannibalization of some of the best teams in the country as they face each other week in and week out? I think BYU has a chance. It's not a guarantee, but they have a chance. Now, having said that, I know that Bronco Mendenhall and his staff are cringing listening to this because they don't want their players thinking that way.
I'm just glad they're listening.
On our radio show on Saturday, College Game Day on ESPN Radio, the host told me, he said, obviously the goal in any given game is to win for the players. And I said, no, that's not the goal. The goal is not to win the game. The goal is to win the next play. Then win the next play after that. Your universe is the next play. If you are fully mentally dialed in the way you need to be, then look up at the end of the game, see what the score is. And that'll take care of itself. So right now, we as fans love talking about these possibilities, and we should. This is part of the fun of college football. But, boy, the staff, they want to insulate their players from this kind of thinking.
Trevor Matich, ESPN college football insider, BYU football national champion in 1984. You can follow him on the Twitter machine at @TMatich. BYU has Utah State up next, Trevor. The Aggies kind of look like a shell of themselves. Chucky Keaton is back. They expect that he'll probably play. What do you think of Utah State now with Chucky Keaton coming off of an injury and coming into Provo this Friday?
Well, Chucky Keaton is always a threat, but coming off of that injury, he injured the same knee that he hurt against BYU last year. And he probably won't be the running threat that he normally is, although BYU will have to prepare for that as if he were that running threat. The real thing about Utah State is their defense. I mean, their offense has not been very good this year, not up to their standard. But their defense is the best in the conference and the best in the Mountain West. And they're very, very good at getting after the quarterback. And so that's something that plays into one of BYU's areas of need for improvement is protecting the quarterback. And so really, I think for fans watching this game, all eyes will be on Chucky Keaton because he plays the glamour position, but being dinged and with less talent around him than he had last year, the real game for fans to watch is once again at the line of scrimmage when BYU has the ball, because Utah State is very, very stout there.
Is BYU in a must-blowout situation then this Friday on ESPN against a perceived lesser opponent?
You know, I love the way you put that. A must-blowout situation. I never heard that said before. Let's stop and relish that moment. That was awesome. A new term has been born. A new unfair expectation has been born.
Hey, you can use that on SportsCenter if you want.
Okay, I'll credit you for it, though. That's awesome. Yeah, that's really awesome. But are they? The answer is no. If they win in advance, survive in advance, remember that there's really very little that BYU can do themselves, as long as they win, to get themselves into a place where they'll be considered for the New Year's Six. They also need teams to lose above them. But if those teams lose, then just surviving and advancing should be enough. Now, it's better if they blow them out. It's better.
Yes.
But there's still a lot of football left to be played.
It's so hard to win every football game. There are only 17 undefeated teams left after 4 or 5 weeks of the college football season.
That's how I feel. I feel like winning with substance or style points is just too hard to expect. I think BYU beat Texas by 34. All of a sudden, the standard went up. Yet, BYU's in a position where they could do some special things. And Friday is the next game. And Friday is a bigger deal, Trevor, because BYU's going to play the Royal Blues. They're on a Friday on ESPN. And Jim McMahon, your old teammate, his jersey will be retired, the number 9, and he'll be in the Hall of Fame. What does that mean to you as a former teammate that finally Jim McMahon gets that formal accolade with BYU?
I love it. You know, and he finished his degree, which completed the final brick in the wall that's required in order to do it. And Jim McMahon is one of those fulcrums that helped to propel BYU to what it has become. You know, there's the long list of great quarterbacks, you know, going back to guys like Gary Scheide, Gifford Nielsen, Mark Wilson, then Jim McMahon, then followed by all the rest of them. Jim McMahon, I played with, and he was more than just a quarterback. He was the kind of leader that inspired not just belief, but full-on knowledge that no matter what happened, he was going to bring us back and we were going to win the game. I always felt like no matter how far we might be trailing, Jim McMahon would know where to put that ball so that we would win. As a matter of fact, very famously in the Holiday Bowl against SMU, the Miracle Bowl, we had a 4th down late in that game, and the coaching staff was calling the offense off the field for the punting team to go in. We were down by 20 points, or maybe not down by 20 at that point. Anyway, we were down. And Jim McMahon famously said, "No way, we're going for it." So they said, "Okay," to the coach's credit, "Okay." And then they converted that 1st down, and we went on to win that game. And so the aura of McMahon goes beyond the records. I mean, for goodness sake, one year he was on the cover of the NCAA record book, Jim McMahon, because he had shattered over 80 records the year before.
Wow.
And so I think because of everything that he meant to bring BYU, not just wins, but to a national consciousness of a national brand, I'm very happy for him and for the school for this moment.
Trevor, where were you on the field during the 1980 Miracle Bowl comeback when he let that pass fly?
I was on the sideline watching it. The starting center, I believe, was Bart Oates, 1980. Bart Oates would have been the starting center. I was his backup. I was standing on the sideline. That ball went up in the air, and when it came down into Clay Brown's hands, bedlam like I'd never experienced before as a young, naive football player. And everything was bigger than my capacity to fully grasp because I was still just a kid. I was just a kid. And I tell you what, the idea of big-time college football was driven home to my emotion in that moment.
Have you ever mentioned that to Craig James or Eric Dickerson at all?
Craig James is still mad about it. I was a teammate of his. I went from BYU to the Patriots, and he was our running back. And he's still upset about that. I mean, he's still mad about it. When you talk to him about it, he gets that game day look in his eyes. He just face all curls up like he just swallowed a dill pickle, and he's mad. He's still mad. You know, which I think is awesome. I just love it that we've been able to generationally affect the emotions of the people that we have crushed. It's awesome.
We talk about Jim McMahon and Steve Young and Bosco, the succession of great quarterbacks, but how about Bart Oates to Trevor Matich? Are you guys left under, are you not enough in the radar or in the spotlight?
The center position.
Yeah, that was a pretty good run. And before that was Scott Nielsen, 220-pound center, my freshman year. Yeah, he was 220, and he might have been the best of all of us.
Wow.
He lives down in Arizona now, but Scott, and he still looks like he could play. Scott Nielsen is one of those guys that has never aged. But he was a 220-pound center for a team that he helped propel into the rankings. You know, a BYU team, one of those pioneers when nobody ever heard of BYU. And, you know, for us it was easier because we were maintaining the momentum that guys like Scott Nielsen had built. But you're right, that center position had a good run. By the way, one of our coaches was Mel Olson, who was a great center at BYU. So this is, that position has always been solid.
I see Mel around campus. He's still in the exercise science department here at BYU.
Yeah, Mel is one of the unsung heroes, along with Roger French. Those two guys, because our offensive line is for all the credit that the quarterbacks and receivers got, our offensive line was phenomenal. I look at old tapes of what we did now. I look at our technique and our execution, and we did things from a scheme standpoint that were really not sound because one-on-one we could get it done. We didn't need help. And really nobody else does what we did to this day that I see in college football. So, and that's one thing that this offensive line needs to develop into because there's a lot of young guys on this offensive line, and I think the future is really good. But in order for BYU to get to where they want to go this year, the offensive line needs to continue to improve because as it sits right now, BYU is one of the worst teams in the country in protecting the quarterback. I mean, they're 106th in sacks allowed. And that's not all on the offensive line because you have a mobile quarterback, a lot of times he'll take off. And so the offensive line gets a lot of grief. They actually play much better than that stat. But one of the points of emphasis is to get more protection from that unit.
ESPN college football insider Trevor Matich with us. It's another Matich Monday on BYU Sports Nation. Okay, Trevor, you have clearly a national perspective. You travel around the country, and the hot topic is the first year of the playoff. If the playoffs were to start today, who would you put in as the 4 teams making the semifinals?
If the playoffs started today, the first team that I'd put in is Alabama. I think they're the best team in the country.
Roll Tide!
Roll Tide, you bet. Roll Tide. And after that, I'd go Oklahoma, then Oregon, and then the team that Oregon beat, Michigan State. Now, the teams behind
Florida
them
State.
are really sure. Yeah, no Florida State. And you know what? I do not have Florida State in my top 4, and I feel fantastic about it. Fantastic. If you didn't know Florida State was the defending national champs with the reigning Heisman Trophy winner, you would think that Florida State was a very average ACC team. And the ACC might be the worst of the Power 5 conferences because their offensive line returned 4 starters. We thought they'd be one of the dominant units in the country. They can't protect the passer. As a matter of fact, in the second half of their opener against Oklahoma State, Jameis Winston, the quarterback, was throwing the ball off his back foot even when there was no pressure because he didn't trust them to protect him. Florida State can't run the ball. Florida State's defense gives up yards and points in buckets. All this is something you don't expect from them, but they are playing poorly, and they are not in my top 4.
Trevor Matich on BYU Strength of Schedule, preparing for Utah State, the national playoff perspective, and on Jim McMahon. Great to talk to you, Trevor. Always delivering on Matich Mondays.
Great, guys. Thank you.